Well, Janaki Fisher-Merritt is joining us. If you don't know anything about him, he's got the food farm up in Wrenshall and also hosts the Free Range Film Festival, which is super fun, and also supplies the cafe with lots of good veggies and lots of good stuff. So super excited to have you down.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for doing this. This is fun.
And now I found out you have already done a podcast.
Yes. Yeah, sure.
We'll have to look that up. What was your podcast
Oh,
called?
I don't even remember. It's probably not even hosted anywhere anymore. I mean, it really was, gosh, I don't know. It was at least 10 years ago. We just recorded a couple episodes of sitting around BSing about movies, and it's probably lost in the digital universe somewhere. At least I hope so.
That's the thing about the digital universe. I don't think it gets lost.
Yeah, right.
That's the scary thing about doing this. We're self-incriminating as we go.
Right, yeah, exactly.
The proof. The food farm seems to be around as long as I can almost remember. Because your dad started it, is that true?
Yeah, my parents moved to Minnesota in 1975. They had met in Oregon and couldn't afford land out there. My mom had grown up in Superior, and so when they were back here visiting family, they looked around and found a farm in Holyoke, actually, a little bit south of where we are now. It was 240 acres, surrounded by Nemadji State Forest, just a beautiful spot, and it was on the verge of bankruptcy. And for some reason, the owner took a liking to my parents and called his bank and told him it was going to go to foreclosure unless he sold to my parents, and they gave him a loan. And so the bank was sort of forced into giving them a loan, even though it was a little sketchy because they had no money. I mean, had a couple $100 in savings, you know? So he kind of arm twisted them into selling to my parents because they didn't want to have some foreclosed property in Holyoke in the middle of nowhere. So that's how they got their start.
That doesn't happen very often, I don't think.
No.
Especially probably not now.
Right. Especially my parents were pretty hippie-fied folks back in the 70s, and the idea of convincing some crusty old-timer in Holyoke to like them enough he was going to go to bat for them with his bank was just, it was a pretty unique situation.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So they've been farming in this area since 75.
Yep.
Oh,
So they had
cool.
their first crop in 1976, and that was tomatoes they sent to the Whole Foods Co-op. My dad got a job there that year, and then I was born the year after in 77.
I was born in 76.
Okay. Yeah. Yep.
Centennial tomatoes.
Exactly. Yep.
Oh, fun. And then, wow. So that is a long time.
It was a long road, In Oregon at the time, organic food had become a thing already, and
Oregon,
right?
but
In
not
Oregon,
here.
but not here. It was kind of
because the co-op was that. I know it had multiple spots. So at that day, where was the co-op in 77?
Yeah, it was on East 8th Street, 6th Avenue. What was it? 631. It's the Boreal Bike Shop, or what? I don't know if that's still there.
Okay.
Last I knew, that's.
I don't
what was
know what's there now. It might be a coffee shop now.
It
It's
could
6th
be.
and 8th, you said?
Yep.
Yep, that little green short building.
Little green building.
I think, Brian Johnson, the percussionist, was redoing the facade, I know,
Okay.
just recently, and
Yeah.
it looks like fish scales now, and I think they're going to maybe try to do something new with it. I don't know what happened with it, but it's
Okay.
not a bike shop, I don't think, at the moment.
Yeah, I grew up in the back room there, coming to work with my dad a fair amount, and we still have the old awning for it in the barn, all the awning mechanism, because it was an old style storefront where you could crank the awning out over the windows every morning. And,
Okay.
yeah.
So, and then in that day, the co-op, you didn't come and get pizza or things like that in prepackaged. It was like raw, organic, make everything from scratch, bulk food kind of thing, right?
Yep. And so at that time, it was mostly just bulk products and spices and things like that, and they really had never carried produce before we showed up. And so our evolution as a farm really kind of evolved with that local foods movement and really getting into healthy organic options and bringing that to people. So it's been a neat evolution. And then we moved to our current farm in 1988, and we started the CSA, the Community Supported Agriculture side of the operation, in 94. So we're one of the early adopters there, especially in this area.
When did you take over?
Then Annie and I bought the farm in 2010.
But you were working there the whole time.
Yeah, yep. My parents made a decision not to let us work on the farm until we were 12.
Oh no! Yeah.
They didn't want it to be kind of drudgery, miserable. Like you have to do this stuff. Like we had household chores and stuff we had to do just as parts of the family. But we weren't really allowed to work until we were 12. And then once we turned 12, we could work, but we got paid.
Yeah.
And so I made a living farming longer than my dad has because he never paid himself until we started the CSA. So he'd been farming for 19 years in Minnesota. And never, the farm kind of paid for its own supplies and seed and everything, but never my parents' actual labor. So the community-supported agriculture operation that was really revolutionary for us because we could market a higher volume of produce in the winter, and then we had the summer to really focus on just growing.
Yeah.
Because to that point, when especially we tried, he and a friend started the Carlton County Farmers Market, but you just stand around for hours getting rid of, 10 pounds of tomatoes or whatever. And it's really impossible to actually make a living at it unless you've got a real high volume market. And we just, have never really had that here. And so the CSA was really revolutionary for us.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're at a farmer's market and everything, hot sun and things wilt, and it's kind of like a bakery. You make all the stuff and you hope people come, where at least a CSA, it's kind of like someone ordering 12 loaves of bread to be picked up at this time. And
yeah,
which is what we do at the cafe. It's nice to have a spot for the customers to pick up their produce, but it's nice for us to piggyback that and have that for the cafe as well.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. And it's just so great to be able to have a space like this. Especially in the winter, we need a warm space to do it. Where it's a lot of our pickup sites in other parts of town are people's front porches or garages, and you just have to have that warm space. So we do the summer shares. That's runs mid-June through mid-October, and then the winter shares we started in 2000. That runs November through April. So it's a perfect setup here for us with the cafe, just because I don't remember how many boxes go here, but it's got to be 50 or something close to it.
In the winter.
Yeah.
It takes up the whole stage.
Yeah.
And I was trying to think when we started working with you guys.
Yeah, gosh.
I should have looked this up.
I know. I should.
But it's been over a decade, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But even, maybe you don't know this, but before we started getting produce for the cafe and became a drop-off site, friends of mine split a share, and it was delivered on Juanita Street.
Yep.
So that I totally understand. And in the winter, it was like in a garage where you'd have to knock on the door up somewhere, and it's cold, and it's like so nice that there's customers out there that will offer their house as a drop-off site.
Yeah.
And today would be a terrible day to pick up veggies.
Yeah, right.
5 below, your carrots would be icicles.
Doesn't take long, does it?
No, it doesn't take long.
Yeah.
But also in the summer, it's hard too to find a spot that has shade or
because it's cool enough.
Leafy greens in the hot sun. You'd say you drop them off at 4 and you don't get off work until 7. And I would say that's what really got me into understanding cooking in the seasons is. Before we even did it at the cafe, I would get the shares at my house, and I'd be like, what do I do with this? It's like, here's kohlrabi, here's mustard greens, here's things you've seen, but you don't use them all the time. So you have to be inventive and learn how to use them in different ways. And that's what learning to use that and not waste it at the house is what gave me the confidence to do it here at the cafe. But then I had the same problem. Now I've learned to like these things at home. Now I have to try to learn to get people to eat their veggies. Like, how do we sneak these beets into something? How do we sneak a rutabaga into something?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because we live right on the farm. We could eat whatever, we could go choose whatever we want to eat, but we pack a box for ourselves also, just like all the others, because we're super busy and we don't eat very well when we get busy and there aren't vegetables in the house. I don't want, I get in late. I don't want to walk around and figure out what I'm going to choose to eat. It's like the box comes once a week and we eat it.
Yeah.
And it's just, it makes the default is you're going to eat vegetables.
Yeah.
Because it's there,
Yeah.
rather than the default being like, oh, there's that box of cereal in the above the fridge, which is kind of that's my default. It's like, oh, there's not stuff in the house. I just don't eat very well.
No,
and most people would be surprised by that, but like really it's all about kind of setting up your life so that the decision you want to make is the easy one.
The hopes and dreams.
Yes. Yeah.
But
exactly.
I mean, that's the same as after I'm here all day, or if I work 7 shifts in a row, plus I'm doing sound, and I get home at 11 o'clock at night, it's really hard to take a root vegetable and try to do something quick with it. So, even if you have them,
Yep.
it's really hard to keep them moving. And
Yep.
So,
Those first couple years are usually the learning curve for people. Once they get over the hump, they get used to in a bit of a routine for what you do, and you can kind of do it on autopilot rather than really having to think about it as much. But it keeps you on your toes for sure.
Yeah, one of our favorite things we always do is roasted roots. That's our favorite. So we'll take any root and just toss in whatever fun fennel or whatever, and roast it in a cast iron pan, hopefully some squash in there too, and make a big batch. And then you have it that first night with the squash, and it's so good. But then you put it away, and now it's ready to go, and you can heat it fast.
Yes.
And you can do other things with it. And so I think that's the trick too to eating in the seasons, is looking at your schedule, and when you do have time to spend 2 hours cooking and roasting veggies, do a big batch maybe, or have it for a couple days, and then you can make a soup out of it or do something else.
And the kids like it too. I mean, they like taking stuff out of the box, like sometimes worry about it a little bit, but they like cutting stuff up. I mean, they do, and once they get good with a knife, it actually it makes life a little easier once they're used to helping, and it gives them a feeling of being connected with their food rather than just being like, eat it or else,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love that too. I mean, I grew up in the country. We had 80 acres, and we had huge garden. I mean, we had everything: peas, beans, corn, squash. We had all the things, and chickens and eggs and all that. And that was our fun thing. It's like we'd get home and Mom and Dad would be like, go pick what you want to eat. And, we'd go out and, I want beans. And we go get our beans or whatever. And I think that's fun too. But
yeah. Our friend Joel Rosen makes an amazing, like a rutabaga pudding almost.
A sweet thing.
Sweet. It's really sweet. It's got maple syrup and a lot of butter. And it's really amazing, but it's definitely a desserty kind
That's
of
a dessert thing.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds good. I mean, I used to make a dessert that was like potatoes and coconut dipped in chocolate. Like you could probably do something like that too. And also we always do like a curry veggie soup. And I just say curry root vegetable, and it's gonna have rutabagas in it.
Right.
But you're doing ginger and all these spices, and you won't even know it's if you cut them pretty small and it's all blended with potatoes and carrots and everything else.
Right.
You won't even notice that it's in there. So
it's really neat to have that much, to add that kind of variety in, because I mean, it keeps you from kind of getting in a rut food wise, but it also you're getting all different minerals and vitamins and everything that you wouldn't get if you're just having the same thing all the time. For kids, I just think it's great to expand their palate when they're young, and it can help them be more adventurous eaters later on.
It's really noticeable, like certain kids, like there's certain kids that come in that you can tell like don't have an option to be picky.
Yeah.
It's like, you go, this is what you get. And it's really noticeable the difference of, who gets to have an option, who doesn't.
Right. Because they all end up, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but most kids I feel like end up getting picky at some point, no matter what.
Probably.
But it's like, where's their baseline from? Like our 8-year-old, he's like, oh my God, the kid just wants to eat pasta and bread and like infinite carbs,
Chicken nuggets.
Yeah, but he's starting from a
French fries.
where he's starting from a baseline where it's like he's got to fall a long way to have a really lousy diet, and that's okay, that's okay. He'll still grab a whole pepper or a whole carrot, and just that's a snack, and that's feels normal to him.
And carrots in general are so interesting because we also get some shares from Hermit Creek Farm.
Sure, yeah.
And they're quite a ways away from you guys, and it's amazing the difference of soil, what makes a carrot, what makes anything, and so you guys have a unique tasting carrot because of your soil, and it's so sweet.
Yeah. Yep.
On the
Yeah.
sweet side.
Yeah, no, it's one of the things that they kind of just sell themselves, because it's the difference with commercial carrots that you can get. It's just night and day. And it's that way with a lot of stuff, but people eat so many more carrots that it's, and I mean, I think it actually is, it's the same thing with potatoes. Like the potato quality is so much better that we grow, but most people, it doesn't register because you're not eating them raw. They're in with other stuff, and it's easy to lose that. But my big thing with potatoes lately is I take all the small russets that we don't really have a sale for, and they'll be, inch in diameter or something. We never used to pick them up, but we just got an actual harvester a couple years ago that picks all the potatoes up, and instead of putting them back on the ground, we have to go back and pick them up like we used to. They're actually on a conveyor, and then they come around and we pick the bad ones and rocks and stuff off, and then the rest go into bin. So we actually have them, we collect them all. Then I have a sizer that sizes out the little ones. I make those into hash browns. And there's so much skin in there, and it's the russet skin, and it's got so much flavor. And if you fry them in enough oil, it's just amazing. I just absolutely love the way it tastes. And of course, when you're having potatoes kind of get a bad rap because there's so much starch in there. Processed potato stuff can kind of cause insulin spikes and stuff like that because of the level of carbohydrates and starch in there.
Sure.
But when you have all that skin in there, you're getting all the nutrition and all those minerals, and all that's kind of buffering the all that insulin stuff and slowing down your digestion. And it's just I love the flavor there. I love growing potatoes.
And so when you make your hash browns, do you soak them?
No, that's the thing.
No,
I'm really lazy when it comes to cooking.
Because I worked on. We used to do with your potatoes. We used to do a quiche with a hash brown crust.
Yep.
And we would grate them.
Okay.
And then we'd soak them. And then we'd mash them and strain them through a sieve.
Yep.
And then we'd do a buttered pan and bake them.
Yeah.
And that's how we'd make our. It was so good.
It's really good, but it's also a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But if you have the time, then you get that crispy.
Yeah.
Maybe you lose some too, though. I guess. I don't know what you're losing.
Here's my hash brown process. So I'll usually, probably 3 pounds of those little potatoes, and then one pretty good sized beet, like a little bigger than a baseball,
like a hash.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then I run it all through the food processor to shred them, and then I get, a skillet. I'll have, what is that, a 12-inch skillet? Cast iron. Put a good amount of oil in there. I mean, you don't want just a thin coating because they'll stick, and you don't want them to scorch, and they'll scorch if you don't have enough oil in there. Get it reasonably hot, and then you just take it out of the food processor. And so when I usually halve or quarter the beet, so it's fairly mixed in there, and that just sweetens it up a little bit, and it's a good way to get kids to eat beets, or people who don't like them. You don't know it's beets really, but it sweetens the whole mix up, and it doesn't really it just lends something extra to the whole mix. So I just put them in, and I put it probably 3/4 of an inch thick. You don't want to overload it, or else it gets too gummy.
Yep.
You want a nice ratio of the cooked inside stuff to the crispy on the outside.
Yeah.
And then I cover it with a lid. Cook it until the top part seems cooked.
Flip it once.
And then, so in order to flip it, then I usually quarter it, flip it, and then I pour oil again in between like the quarters. And oh God, it turns out so good. It turns out so good. And it's no futzing around with draining and rinsing and all that stuff. When I take it out of the food processor, I usually will just kind of squeeze it a little bit.
Yeah, that helps.
That way you don't have all that extra moisture in there. But that's simple. It takes no work at all. So, anyway, that's my go-to hash brown.
Then a soft egg on top.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yo. Well, actually, people can come out to the farm at least once a year, right? For the film fest you guys do. Is that still gonna be happening?
Yeah. So So this will be our. I think this is the 19th. We started it in 2004, and so it's actually just down the road from the farm. This was a place that Annie and I bought, I guess it was December 2002.
Oh, it's your old house.
Yeah.
Okay,
yep. So
right,
we bought
sure.
it just down the road from the farm. We needed a place because I was sort of living above our machine shop. And Annie's like, yeah, I don't know about this. And so we bought this place just down the road, and it had this beautiful old barn, and we cleaned it out and rigged up a projector and sound system, and had a friends who were filmmakers and interested in movies and stuff, and we're like, oh, let's do a film festival. So they just put a website up, and we'll see what happens. And we got over 200 submissions that first year, and a couple hundred people showed up, and I was like, oh wow, this is pretty cool. And we've just kept doing it and made little upgrades here and there. And that first year, we still got probably half our submissions on VHS.
Yeah.
That's how fast things
be.
have changed, and now everything is, everything's a download. And but it's really neat. It's a neat way to have people come and see the farm, see the barn, and really admire that structure. It's kind of, they're kind of obsolete. Those old style dairy barns they don't really have an agricultural purpose very much anymore. And so having a reason to maintain it and keep it from falling down and keep the roof from leaking is really, it's important to me, and people really enjoy being there. And it's just great to have a place for that creative outlet that you just aren't going to get.
What are the dates this year? What is it? Always the last?
Yeah, it's the last weekend in June.
June, sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Me and Dan Dresser did the cooking on the car thing, so I got to go for that.
Your old,
time.
Gosh, what year was it? A 93 Camry or something that had the exhaust manifold in the perfect place.
Yeah, but that's unfortunately the only year I've been to the film fest. But it's because I'm always doing the cafe and playing in bands, and I look at my calendar and go, I didn't block it out again.
Summers
and
get
always
full,
mess it up. But if you have a chance, mark your calendar now, and I should actually do that right now. Last weekend in June, Free Range Film Fest is such a good time. It's funny you mentioned living above the machine shop, because I was just in Texas, and we stayed with this lady, and she has a farm and has cattle, and she needed a little extra money to make it work, so she calls it a barnuminium.
Oh, yeah.
And she started shuttling hikers. We hiked the Lone Star Trail. And so we found her Tina found her because of the hiking shuttle, but then found out she has this barnuminium, which is in her barn. She just added a little house connected, inside the machine shop pretty much. Yeah. Just put a little house. It's like a tiny house on the edge of the machine shop, so you can still park your tractor and then everything else in there. But here's a little, and you can stay there and then get a ride to the trail. It's kind of, maybe if you would have made a barnuminium.
Yeah, I should have done that. Maybe Annie would have been okay with that.
But you still could. You could raise funds for the film fest with a barnuminium.
There you go.
In your spare time.
Exactly.
So probably a bad idea. You'll be washing sheets and
right. Well, yeah, that's the thing. People ask me about doing a Airbnb, and we've got a neighbor down the road that does a hip camp thing, which is kind of a rustic cabins that people can kind of stay in.
Or the RV thing that people are doing now, park your RV on a farm. Yeah. I forget what that's called, but that's becoming a bigger thing.
Yeah, I have a hard enough changing the sheets on my own bed, let alone doing it for other people. I'm like, no.
I don't even want to talk about how bad I am at changing sheets. We will buy the really best sheets they actually ever make, but then it's how long is this bed? And our dogs are sleeping with us in bed. Now we have 2 dogs sleeping with us in bed, and it's we should set a calendar, a reminder to
a Google alert.
But it goes with getting home, and it's cook some root vegetables or do laundry. Cook some food instead.
So we do a farm tour also, and that's usually one of the last weekends in August. I don't know the exact date, but I think it is the last weekend in August. We usually do that. I think this past year was the 27th or something on Saturday. Yeah. Chance for people to come out and see the farm. We do a hay ride for the kids where they get to jump on the hay wagon and ride around the farm. And this past year we've got a pizza oven, so we we're cooking pizzas for people. And
like a wood-fired one?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yep. So that was something we had built years ago and then just really never used until the pandemic. And then, with all the getting together outside being such a big deal, Annie was like, I got to fire this thing up and really learn to use it. So that was kind of a fun outgrowth of those years of.
So you make the dough and
Yeah, Annie does it.
make
She's
pesto
a pro.
and
Yep.
if anyone's ever in Hayward and maybe you've heard of this place, have you ever heard of the Farmstead Creamery Cafe?
No.
There is this sweet family, and they have this great place, like several hundred acres, and it's aquaponics where you have the tilapia and the gardens and all that, and they raise all these animals, and they raise sheep, and they milk sheep, and they make their own chev cheese, and they have a wood-fired pizza oven, and then they have concerts, and my band Woodblind has played there several times, and they just add a little extra charge to the pizza, and they get this nice crowd that comes out, and they're growing all their food, and the tomatoes are the sauce. They grew the tomatoes, the pesto, the basil, the it's amazing.
Yep.
But it's so fun too to have something delicious out on the farm, and it's somewhat easy. You can do one thing and enjoy the actually see the stars if it gets dark.
Yeah, right.
And,
Yep. The other thing aside from the tour is we have a lot of volunteers. I mean, we've got probably 5 or 6 people who fairly regularly come to the farm, usually on share packing days, and that's kind of fun. It's kind of turned into a neat social thing because the crew it's a lot of work, and so having a couple days or a couple mornings usually, because we usually pack from like 9 o'clock to about 1 or 2, and for the crew to have kind of an infusion of people who are enthusiastic and showing up for that morning, and it's that's been a nice little kind of injection of energy and conversation into the regular week. Is Monday and Thursday mornings we got 3 or 4 new people kind of showing up and helping pull the load, and it's a neat way for people to get to participate in the farm, to actually get to do the work, and it's fairly straightforward. And
I like when you guys do a little like social media video. One of my favorites is the carrot cultivator thing.
Oh yeah,
where it's just like this assembly line where it's popping the carrots out and sorting them and throwing them in containers, and it's this whole assembly line, and it's kind of phenomenal.
Yeah,
how many carrots.
Yes, yeah. Our friend Mike does that, a lot of those short videos for us, and it's neat. It's nice for people to be able to see kind of the process and how it all happens. Because I mean, we've got this fall. I was just looking at our storage records, and I usually take consistent inventory like the first Monday in November every year, and then I can kind of compare year to year what we've got kind of sitting in storage. And I mean, it's over 200,000 pounds in storage at that point in the season. So like it's just a lot of food that we're able to produce on, it's 17 acres that we're cultivating any given year, and to have just the fall storage part be over 200,000 pounds is pretty remarkable. It's a lot of food for people who live up here, and that feels really good.
It's because Terry that delivers, right?
Yeah.
When Terry delivers, if I'm not too busy, I try to go help her load in, and she is so strong because those boxes in the winter, they're solid packed food. It's like it is a heavy box.
Yeah,
she carries 2 at a time usually, at least. And it's like.
Yeah, no, she's tough. She's my sister-in-law.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and
that's cool.
So she's
so great.
Her first year, I think, on the farm was 2003, and she and my brother met. He was still working on the farm at that point, and managed to keep her in the loop on the farm, even through having kids and everything. And now she's just absolutely the backbone. I mean, she works year round.
And now her son is helping.
Yes.
He's carrying boxes.
Yep.
But he's not 12 yet. What's going on?
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, he's 16.
Oh, really?
He's 16 now.
Oh, I guess I'm losing track.
Yeah.
Maybe when I met him. But
yeah.
He's 16.
Yeah.
It's sign up time to do you have spots open? Can people get into summer shares, or do you have to start with winter? How's it working this year?
Yeah, so we usually give a couple weeks for our renewing members to sign up, but that's usually right around the end of January. We start opening it up to the mailing list. So basically, by the time you're hearing this, you could sign up. I'm sure we'll have some spots available.
And what's the website people can check out?
So foodfarm.us.
Okay.
Nice and simple.
.us.
Yeah.
And then social media, if they want to check out some of the videos on Instagram, or is it just the same?
Yeah, it's at Food Farm CSA on Facebook and Instagram.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, so we're out there. Annie and Mike keep the content coming. Yeah, and that rutabaga giveaway, we're doing it at Wild State Cider again at their outdoor curling rink. That was great for having stuff the kids could do.
We'll have to
Yeah.
see when this pops out. But yeah, Wild State this year.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
So they've got
or
that-
last year too, right?
We did it last year there too. Yeah,
It's
Yep.
just a good space, lots of room, and
Right. It was nice to have a space. The kids just love sliding around on the ice, and so that was pretty nice. And
they're like an ice skating rink. Or?
it's curling.
Oh, it is.
Yeah. So my dad made this wooden handle that I screwed into the top of a rutabaga.
Curl with the rutabaga.
Exactly. Yeah. We find all sorts of uses for them.
That's fabulous.
We used to just come to town and have kind of a member get together every winter just to say hi to people in town during the time of the year where people are kind of disconnected from what we're up to, and we have a little more time and breathing space to kind of come and just socialize and say hi to people. And then it seemed like every year we had more rutabagas than we knew what to do with. So we're like, well, let's just give them away. And so we just, it's probably 6 or 7 years now where we're like, yeah, all right, we'll just bring the rutabagas and give away rutabagas and say hi to people and just
That's so cool.
try and build community around good food and farming. And it doesn't always happen on the farm. And that's just fine. We're trying to build what we're doing in local agriculture and get people excited and interested in it, that it's not, really the main thing for us is that so many of our problems seem so big and so far away and that we can't do anything about them. And what we're doing with local farming, I mean, it's here. I mean, we are doing it. And the things that our members and you at the cafe and everybody involved have been doing over the course of the last 20 to 40 years, like we actually produce a lot of food for real people. It's just regular stuff, and during the pandemic when people suddenly realized, oh, this, like, all these supply chains actually are really tenuous. Like, we're actually not on very stable footing when it comes to our food supply and the supply of all kinds of things. It kind of really, I think, helped the broader public be aware that it is important to do things for ourselves, and whether that's through food, through local agriculture, whether it's through entertainment and culture, really being able to build community, create those connections, and sustain our local economy, it benefits us all the way around when we can do those things rather than just relying on the national and international market system that ships food from everywhere to everywhere that really doesn't come from anywhere, and it doesn't necessarily feed, you don't know who it's feeding. We have a pretty direct connection with the people who buy our produce and support us, just like you do at the cafe when you're supporting artists and musicians. And I think that connection is really special, and it makes everything you do feel more worthwhile.
I really noticed during the pandemic, having the stability of knowing this is coming and buying whole pigs from Weicker Acres, and things kept coming here that in a kind of a normal way, where a lot of other things you wanted to get weren't normal. And that was really kind of a big, interesting eye-opener for me, even to see it in real life. And the other really interesting thing that helped us cook in the seasons at the cafe even more, sort of a silver lining in the pandemic, is we signed up for all the food, and then pandemic, and no one was coming, and we're just doing a drive-through. So I took our normal menu just off, and I would just put up 3 to 5 specials a day and say, this is what we have. And it spurred our Minnesota Bowl, which is, all the local, whatever's in season is in this bowl.
Yeah, it's great.
And now it's one of our most popular items. And now when we first started trying to use local food, it wasn't working. It was like a lot of it went into soup, because it was like, this is spoiling, or this didn't go, or it's like I would try to figure out things to do with it. Now it's like, I need more, I'm out. So it's really turned, and it's starting to work here as well. Yeah. And we've got a following now for some of this good food, which is really cool. It's really great.
Yeah. Yep.
Always room to keep expanding and make things better and incorporate even more of that. But it's a really good start, and at least a good start of a model for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can really tell when things click for people. And it's hard. And I always, whenever I'm at conferences and, talking to other farmers who are interested in supplying restaurants and food service and stuff, it's so important that they realize that what busy, intense places that those kitchens are. Like, you guys don't have much room for error. It's super easy to just order off the Cisco, whatever they've got. And like, as farmers, we need to do as good of a job as we can at being reliable and consistent and making it easy on people who are in those situations, because, it's high pressure. The margins aren't very big. And I think it's really easy for young farmers to get kind of caught up in the farmers are cool kind of a thing, and not like have the big picture that like what the people processing that food and selling it are really up against, because it's a big deal and customer demand shifts and you have to shift with it, and figuring all that out it's a big deal. So the places like Wussow's that have figured out how to do that, like it's a special talent, and it takes that commitment and attention to detail to actually make it work. And it's really, really neat when it comes together.
It's really fun when it comes together, and it did take a while, and I didn't know it'd be that hard. But it makes sense, because if anyone's had a CSA, it probably took. I bet everyone wasted food at the start.
Yep.
Because it's just like it's so much to figure out, and learn how to use it in the right way, and what delicata squash is going to go bad before an acorn. There's different, you can kind of learn what has to go first and how to sneak it in here and there. And
right. Yeah.
Which seeds can you toast? Our sandwich today has toasted squash seeds on, but some aren't good. They break your teeth.
Yeah, right. Those kabocha ones they're a lot of fiber in there.
Yeah, I didn't realize at one time, and I just toasted them and thought they were okay, but all of a sudden it's like, these are terrible. I'm like, these are terrible. What was I thinking? It's like, okay, scratch.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the thing I tell people with it is a learning curve, and people do end up. I mean, you always end up not using something.
Yeah.
Oftentimes. But when you think about the amount of food waste that's in the food system that's all hidden.
Oh, it's sad.
Right. I mean, so like, sure, every once in a while, like we'll get our spring turnips and we end up not eating the greens, and they get all wilty. We feed them to the chickens, or you can compost, or sometimes they end up in the trash. But
it is hard to get through all the greens.
But if you've ever been out back behind grocery store,
oh my gosh,
they're throwing away so much food because it sits on the shelf, it sits and sits, and then it doesn't look good, and no one's going to buy it, even if it's actually okay, and it's going to get thrown, and it just happens in huge quantities.
Yep.
And with the CSA, it's going direct from the field to that box in your fridge.
Yeah.
Really no waste in between. So like you could waste, 20% of it, and you're still going to be ahead when it comes to food waste.
Right.
I mean, and that would be throwing away an incredible amount of food, and you're still better off, because every step of the way, from the field to the packing house to the aggregation center to the warehouse to the truck that ships it across the country to the retail distribution center to the supermarket coming off the shelf there's waste at every point in that food chain. And so it is more visible for people.
Or contamination, salmonella just in processing, because it's like, everything in this plant was processed on the same day, so everything gets recalled.
Right.
Even though it was one item, but they processed 5 items.
Sure.
And things like that can go wrong.
Exactly. So having that direct connection there, it's hard for people when it's a kind of a one-to-one and they see the waste rather than all the stuff that's hidden in the regular food system. But it really is it's a more efficient system when it comes to food waste and
gas and transportation and refrigeration and all the things that really add up.
Yeah.
And then good soil. You're not over fertilizing because it's organic. It's not blowing away, and you're doing cover crops, and you're rotating and doing other things that the old way of doing it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yep. We've got old techniques and all kinds of new tricks that we use, and that part of organic farming has been really neat to see, over the last 40 years. It used to be organic farming was really scoffed at, and you can't get the yields, and the quality is going to be really poor. And that was kind of the reputation when my folks first moved here and when I was growing up. And now the conventional farmers are copying a lot of what organic farmers do, whether it's cover cropping, whether it's nutrient management. They're trying, they're seeing their yields go down. They're seeing how much instability there is in the system when you're feeding a plant chemicals rather than feeding a biological system that supports that plant. They're understanding how organic farming builds in resilience, and they're trying to figure out how to copy some of that stuff. And there's a lot of movement right now in the conventional world trying to incorporate cover crops and stuff like that. And so that part of it has been pretty interesting lately. Just the broader agricultural system is starting to realize that we've built a hyper efficient but super fragile system.
My grandpa was a farmer, and actually my dad grew up farming with horses, and 25% of their land it's going to be just rye, or something that's going to put nutrients back. And I suppose it's hard when you're trying to pay the bills and use every bit of the land, but it's short sighted in the long game, really.
Yeah, we've moved to a system in the last 15 years or so where we're taking every piece of ground out of production every other year. So it's in vegetables one year, it's out the next, and we've developed a land base. Yep, developed a land base where we can do that, and it really makes a difference with our ability to get a real solid soil building cover crop in between every cash crop and break those pest and disease cycles and really maintain a healthy landscape with just being committed to that system.
And it adds flavor and minerals,
exactly.
And all the flavor is from restoring that natural. Yum.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, this has been so fun. I don't know, any other fun news you want to let folks know about?
Oh boy.
Is your dad still doing poetry?
Oh my goodness. He's sort of taken a break from poetry. Thank goodness.
Thank goodness. I was going to say we should sneak him down here.
Yeah, right. Exactly. You should. He would love it. We do a spoken word thing every month. Yeah, right. Be the guest. My teenage self is still lurking prominently in my gut, and so I can't handle listening to it.
Oh. We won't send him a link.
No, it's fine. It's fine. He understands. But he's gotten really into woodworking lately.
Oh, cool.
And he did a lot of woodworking in Oregon in the 70s, and then once we moved to Minnesota, he moved a lot of wood here, a lot of black walnut, but also some maple, some myrtle wood, some other things, trees he'd cut down and actually sawed into planks. And these are, pretty big trees, a lot of them. There'll be walnut slabs that are, 2 inches thick and wow, 24 inches wide, and really big chunks of wood. And
hard to find ever again, really,
right,
at this
yep.
point.
So they moved from Oregon to Holyoke.
With the wood?
Yes. From Holyoke to Wrenshall. Sat in the back of the barn for, 30 years. And then a few years ago, he started kind of, after I bought the farm, he started tinkering around with that stuff again. He got his old sawmill out, which is it's a giant old steel chainsaw with a 4-foot bar on it.
Oh.
And he had carpal tunnel surgery. And I swear it was 8 weeks to the day, after he'd had the surgery, and said he could start doing stuff again. He had that giant chainsaw out and cutting up more trees. Had a couple old maples that had burls in them that he was cutting into slabs. And so he's been playing around with that stuff lately. He's making a tabletop right now for a friend of ours, and he keeps very busy.
Yeah,
he's very, very busy, even though he's not doing nearly as much farm stuff anymore.
Well, that's your turn.
Oh, yeah, right, exactly. And we had and still do have such a great working relationship. He allowed me growing up to have the farm develop along my vision also, not just his. And so it really developed as an organism with he and I and our friend Dave Hanlon, who's worked with us since I was 15 years old. We
Oh, Dave, the basil Dave.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So his first year on the farm was 93, the year before we started the CSA, and the farm has just evolved with all of us in different phases of life, and new people coming in, like Terry, to the operation, being just integral parts. And it's really been a rewarding thing. And we all understand that we're all committed to the work and to what we do. And so, like with my dad and I, the key to our relationship, I think, is just being able to argue about stuff. Like, we don't keep it hidden and we just argue about it. And then we, oftentimes when I was a kid, you'd be like, all right, you can do it. And then all of a sudden I get out of college and I'm managing like a third of the farm already because I was young and opinionated and thought I could do it better. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait a minute, I got suckered into doing all this
you
work.
got Tom Sawyered.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly it. So anyway, it's been, I can't imagine a better way to start farming. It's never easy, but it's always rewarding.
If you've never tried a CSA, it's definitely worth trying out. And go sign up if you can sneak in on a summer share. It's definitely worth it. If you can't get in, start with the winter share and eat your tubers. And
winter shares are often, they're more accessible for people. You've got a little more time because that stuff stores, and you've got more time to figure out what to do with it.
And split it with a friend. That's how I got started. I mean, because then you only have to deal with half of it, and then it doesn't feel as stressful. So
exactly.
Well, very cool.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me down, Jason. It's really fun. Good to see you and catch up a little bit.
Absolutely, and I'm excited for everyone to know more about what you guys are doing out there, and you've been doing it for so long, and much longer than I even realized. Your dad started when I was born, so it's been a long time.
It's been a long road, but a really positive one.